So, what's the difference between last night and this morning? Maybe if you're part of our church, you joined with us last night as we celebrated the coming of Christ, and lit candles and shared in communion, and had this great opportunity to be together as a community on Christmas Eve. And now, today, this morning, Christmas morning. What's the difference between last night and this morning when it comes to you and me and things of faith and everything that makes you sit down in front of a computer on a Sunday morning, even this Sunday morning, that we might in some way encounter the presence of God? Our faith, Jesus says, is at its best when it is most childlike, that we are invited to come into Jesus' kingdom like a child. And in fact, he says, if you don't come like a child, you may not get in at all. And to me, man, there's no greater time for childlike faith than this morning. For our youngest friends, last night is about believing a thing and being so close to it that maybe you can't even sleep. And then this morning is about waking up and finding out that it's true. If our lives are about the kingdom of God, if our lives are about anticipating heaven on earth and trying to make this world a little more like heaven, this morning for our youngest friends in our most childlike ways, this morning is about as close to heaven as it might get. So how do we communicate if this is one of our best days, if this is one of our holiest days, our most set apart days? How do we communicate the parts about today, the parts about last night that matter most in a more everyday kind of way? Because this only comes around once a year, but the things that make it most important, how do we communicate those things in a good childlike kind of way that have a chance to make a difference every day? Because if we're honest, the things that human beings tend to pursue as most important in our lives don't always exactly line up with the things we feel like are most important on days like today. Like maybe we wouldn't say it to our youngest friends, or maybe we wouldn't even say it out loud to anyone. But as people, the things that we tend to end up pursuing a lot of times, the things that we tend to put at the center of our lives, even unknowingly sometimes, end up being a little less childlike and a little more something else. For as long as there have been human beings have put power at the center of their lives, for instance. And maybe you hear that and you think, well, that's maybe for the rich and famous and politicians and athletes and famous people and all that, but not for me. But the truth is, this idea of rising to be the best and getting things and holding on to things and grasping them and exerting ourselves as being at the top of something, this pursuit of power, even if we wouldn't call it that way, for human beings, as long as there's been human beings, sometimes that has a way of rising to the top of our list. Or how about this one, right? If we think, well, maybe our lives are not only about power, but this one, what makes me happy? What makes me feel good? Putting that at the center of our lives? We know a thing or two about that. Now, to be clear, this is a day for pleasure, right? I got 1.5 pounds of cherry pie filling in our house today. It's not in our house every day, but it's in our house today, and it's going to be in a pie later, and then that pie is going to be in my belly, and it's going to be amazing, right? But we would say that if every day there was 1.5 pounds of cherry pie in our lives, maybe we might have moved pleasure, what makes me happy, what makes me feel good, to the center. And again, we wouldn't say it this way to our youngest friends, that, oh, this life is about getting the most stuff. This life is about being the best and dominating everybody else. And I don't even think we would say to our most childlike friends that this life is about absolutely what makes you happy and what gives you the most pleasure, and everything else comes around that. I think we understand, even in our human nature, that there is something more that we're called to in this life. That you and I are called to have a purpose beyond our own pursuit of greatness, our own power, or just our own pursuit of what makes us feel good. That you, as someone watching anything to do with church on Christmas morning, might already believe that there is a purpose in our lives that's greater than our own pursuit of greatness and power and our own pursuit of happiness and pleasure. But here's the thing about purpose too. Even the greatest purpose we could have, even the godlike, Christ-like purposes that we could have, just purpose by itself is usually not enough. Like if this life was just about God telling us exactly what to do, and our faith was just about God telling us exactly what to do and exactly how to do it and how to fulfill the call that God has placed on our lives and just do that, that sounds simple and can have beautiful purpose. But the truth is, we know in our story that's already been tried before. That even when God tells us exactly what to do and gives us purpose and meaning and law and reason, that purpose by itself, even the best of purposes by itself, is never quite enough. And whatever manner of faith you might be, or maybe you just stumbled across this video here on Christmas Day, or someone sent it to you, or whatever the case may be, even if you struggle to define yourself as a person of faith or a religious person, you know this in your own life too. That your own pursuit of purpose, whatever you think it is, automatically becomes more meaningful when other people get involved. When that purpose can be tied to our children, our parents, our spouse, our friends, our household, our team, even the greatest purpose by itself needs a little presence. Even my handwriting is terrible, by the way. Presence. Even the greatest purpose needs a little presence. And the good news of this day is that that's exactly what we get. God on Christmas Day doesn't just give us a new mission or a new purpose or a new law or a new anything. God gives us, in fact, something old. Something as old as time itself, and maybe even a little older, because what God gives us this day is himself. What God gives us this day is Emmanuel. What we celebrate most, what we would want to share most about this day, is that this God, now in the form of this child, who will grow up to be a man, who will live and die and live again, this day is about this God being with us, because God knows more than anyone, I'm sure. It's not enough to give a group of people just purpose. We need relationship. We need each other. That makes our purpose go. That's how it works for all of our key relationships, but none more so than God on this day giving us not just a noble pursuit or a great idea. God gives us God today. And so, what do we do with all that? Because the truth is, no matter how you may think of yourself, you have some power. You have relationships where you have influence. Maybe you're responsible for people at work. Maybe you're not. But you have some power in this life. And I hope whatever kind of pie is going to show up at your table tonight, I hope you have some pleasure too. The truth is, we're created to experience some of these things and to have them in our lives, but to be careful about putting them in the center. And to understand that even when we believe that it's purpose that goes in the center, that even purpose by itself is not enough. We need help. We need grace. And today, this morning, grace is here because this God is with us. And the good news about that grace is it's going to be here tomorrow too. And so how do we respond to all that, I think, is praise. This day and every day, because of what God not just has done, but because of who God is in us, our whole lives are praise. Praise isn't just a type of music that you listen to or something that you do in the shower when no one's here to hear you sing, or any of those things, our very lives get a chance to be grateful because God, in the midst of our own pursuits and our own flaws and our own searching and all that, God has come to be with us. In the midst of our pursuit of power or pleasure or purpose or whatever it may be, God has given us himself, our Emmanuel, that our whole lives in response, because of this day, because of who this God is, and because of our relationship to this God now through this Jesus, everything we do has a chance to be done in praise and thanksgiving of who God is. Praise comes a little easier today, or at least I hope it does for you. But ours is a God who calls us to remember that he has given us everything we need. And our lives, all of them, every breath of them, can be in a response of praise for who God is and who we are in him. Merry Christmas. Enjoy this day. Enjoy it. And know that tomorrow, the grace of God is going to be right here with us again.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds kept their watching o'er silent flocks by night, behold, throughout the heavens there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. The shepherds feared and trembled when low above the earth rang out the angel chorus that hailed our Savior's birth. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Down in a lowly manger, the humble Christ was born, and God sent us salvation, that blessed Christmas morn. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Go tell it on